All right, let's get going.
All right, Chair, first we are going to do one more item of issues that I emailed you all about. There was an edit to the letter to Mr. Wetton for his park donation. And so I would like one more review. If you could please approve this second version, commissioners. I emailed it to you 2 hours ago. Have you had a chance to see it?
So moved. Martha said second. Further discussion? Well, there's only 3 of us here, so Christina, why don't you go ahead and poll us?
Going to be an easy poll. Commissioner Fisher?
So I think that's an aye, but I just want to ask we will work with Mr. Boyd to allow him to pasture his horse. That's the part that was added. And that is because there was some other agreement that we just need to include in this. And is that right, Gary?
Yeah, Mr. Wetton asked that if he went to the park, we would allow, I think that's his neighbor. Now his neighbor,
okay.
The usage.
Okay, all looks good to me. Aye. Thank you.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
And Chair Bernard?
Aye, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Thank you. Now we're on to the first policy session of the afternoon. First is performance Clackamas update for your board priority of ensure safe, healthy, and secure communities. We have Health, Housing, and Human Services and District Attorney staff to update you on these goals. These are your domestic violence and affordable housing goals. So as soon as the room, actually this may be it, I think. Maybe Dan Johnson too, Christina, if he's there. He's not, so we'll just go ahead. We have Richard Swift, Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services, and John Wentworth, District Attorney-elect, present. Please go ahead, gentlemen.
Well, I think it's up to me to do this. I'm as you're aware, one of the strategic results for the county commissioners is that by 2024, 80% of victims of domestic violence will not experience further abuse following their initial report. The idea is that when cases of domestic violence come to our awareness within the system, we want to be able to make sure that we are providing the services that we need and should to ensure that the victim is safe and continues to be safe into the future. Working on this project, I've chaired the work. We've had assistance from Victim Assistance and the District Attorney's Office, the Board of County Commissioners, Clackamas Women's Services, the Juvenile Department, Health, Housing, Human Services, the Sheriff's Office, Resolution Services, Public and Government Affairs, and Community Corrections have all given very good input into this project. Our key strategies in handling this have been to identify the baseline rate for re-victimization in Clackamas County within 3 years of the presenting incident. We want to identify gaps and reasons that lead to lack of reporting after the initial report of abuse, and any gaps and improvements that can be made to reduce the rate of re-victimization. And identify services that victims find particularly useful in reducing re-victimization. We want to enhance those services. And if there are things that we are doing that actually don't move the needle, we need to know that too, so that we can put our efforts into the right bucket. The metrics that we're using to do that work is to identify the services utilized before and after case presentment. In other words, when the case comes into the district attorney's office, what services are we providing? And the services utilized after the case is disposed of. So we realize that this isn't necessarily something that ends with the touch with the system. It might require ongoing efforts. If re-victimization occurs, we'd like to know what the nature of the new offense is, especially if it's more severe, and whether a victim of domestic violence has the same or a different offender. The goal there is recognizing that someone might move on from their current relationship, their current abusive relationship, and land into another one. And what we want victims of crime to know is that there are services that can help them no matter what. Whoever their offender is, our services are here. And if they're taking advantage of those services because they know they're there, we want to know that. And if they're not, because they assume they can't, because they haven't come to the awareness of law enforcement, that's an area that we need to do some work in. So what we've done to date is, just so you know, we've identified 701 cases that came into the district attorney's office in 2017. So we're starting with a three-year baseline, right? And those are cases of all kinds and no matter what the disposition is. So even if the district attorney's office declined the case for prosecution, that doesn't mean the victim isn't necessarily a victim. It just means that we're unable to prove that case in a court of law beyond a reasonable doubt. And so they might still need services, right? Those victims of crime, and we want to make sure that they're being served. And we've identified which victims to question from those 701 cases. And we've drafted questions to get at what we're trying to measure and any follow-up services that might be needed. We are aware that when we're presenting these questions to crime victims, we might get disclosures of new abuse. And so we've asked staff from the DA's office, the Victim Assistance Office and the DA's office to carry out that survey so that if we get a disclosure of new abuse, we have someone there who can say, we have the means to help you and here's what we can do, right? So that's, this isn't just data gathering, it's actually trying to provide further services. What we've done so far is that we've identified the cases for the survey, those 701. We've identified the victims to question from those 701 cases. We've identified the questions that we're going to be asking. We have the staff at the DA's office to conduct that survey and set up a survey monkey to fill that out as we go along. In the next quarter, we're going to begin that survey. So we're ready to go. We're going to begin that survey. We're going to identify any adjustments to the survey that need to be made based on our initial input from victims and from the victim advocates, and identify any follow-up services that need to be used. We expect to have that survey done in the third quarter, and that's when we're going to begin to identify the gaps and improvements that exist and any improvements that can be made. And we will have a report prepared to you to identify what those are. And then we'll be able to report out to the board in April or June. So that establishes our baseline. We want to know how we're doing now, and then we're going to see what we learned from that survey, make adjustments, and then we will continue to do that survey as time goes on, and hopefully we'll get good input and we'll be able to improve our services. So far, what's been working well is that we have great collaboration. The meetings are well attended by all of our community partners that I named at the top. We're confident that the questions that we've created should get to what we're trying to measure and what follow-up services might be needed. But we do have challenges in this. Out of those 701 cases, as you might imagine, it might be difficult to get a hold of any number of those people. We know that conducting the survey will take considerable time because we're not just asking a series of questions. We might be getting into very personal matters with the people that we're talking to that require additional follow-up, and we're prepared for that. Just being able to find those 701 victims could be difficult, and we're recognizing that, and so we're anticipating that we will have a representative survey or a representative sample based on those victims that we're able to reach. And then one issue, the final issue that community corrections raised is, and we're going to, this creates kind of an interesting study, and that is offenders who transfer their probation from Clackamas County to another county may or may not be on formal supervision. They may or may not have the same services that we have in Clackamas County. And so we want to be able to identify who those offenders might be and see whether that affects our outcomes, right? So if someone transfers to, say, Yamhill County, and Yamhill County doesn't supervise, say, misdemeanant offenders, what effect does that have on our crime victims down the road? So that should be an interesting result. We're kind of looking forward to finding out what we can. And that's my report out. If you have other questions, I'm happy to answer whatever I can.
Don't see any questions right now, John. So I'm sorry, Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, not really so much a question, but just a comment. I really acknowledge and appreciate the level of collaboration that it takes to address a metric like this. And I just want to applaud the thought, the depth of working together, because it is such a complex issue. And it's just so nice that the leadership in Clackamas County for years has really prioritized this issue, because it's a real struggle for those that are in these relationships. And it's such a drain on our community when issues go unresolved. So thank you so much. Happy for you to get sworn in here. Not much longer. You better enjoy this month. It's your last month.
I will be taking a little time off, so thank you.
Good.
All right.
And I know you didn't, sorry, Gary, I know you didn't mean to bring this up, Commissioner Fisher, but I do want to say, and this is on behalf of me, I'm speaking for a whole team of people who've been working on this, but I really want to give a deep public appreciation to Commissioners Humberston and Bernard for their commitment to this issue. Both of you have been amazing to work with, and the work you've done, the commitment you've had, is going to carry on for years. And I hope that you take that to heart, because it's deeply appreciated.
I mean, Wanda's.
Yep.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Look forward to working with you in another capacity in the future. All right, hopefully not in the courtroom.
Yeah, Jim, I was going to say, we don't want you to be a defendant in John Wentworth's district attorney's office.
Right.
Yep. Definitely don't want to be a dependent or
Defendant.
defendant. Yes. Good evening.
Do we need to make a motion or anything on this? No?
No, it's information.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you, Richard
Well,
and Dan Johnson.
there's more to come. That was just
Okay.
the first part of this. The next
That was
part
the
is
intro.
goal. So Richard and Dan, I'm sorry, you were in the room the whole time and I said you weren't here yet. I apologize. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation. So Rich and Dan, go ahead on the next goal, please.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Gary. Good afternoon, Chair and the board. So Dan and I are here to talk about housing, one of my favorite topics. I never talk about it. So by 2025, and this is, I'll go over the board strategic results here. By 2025, 1,500 affordable housing units will be developed. This includes, in the overall count, rehab units and units at various construction phases, because we wind up in development and either we're working on something which is viable, we're working on something that we've committed it, we've developed it, and then we've completed it. Those units will be stratified across average median income, AMI ranges, in our strategy document, which is essentially for the entirety of the county. We have 700 units, and that's a focus on the 61 to 110% of average median income. And then for H3S, the bulk of our work, 800 units, 0 to 60%, with a good bulk of that focus on 0 to 30%. So one of the things that's been actually probably some of the most enjoyable work in this is really, because this is a heavy lift, is that this has been really a countywide effort, in the sense that it's been members of H3S. It's been Jill Smith. I know you all know Jill. Derek Renke, got Vahid, Brown, Brenda, Durbin. I could go on for H3S. And then within DDT, you have the uncomparable Dan Johnson, followed by Jennifer Hughes. And then A&T, Tammy Little, Lynn Longfellow. And, the assessor, Tammy's been an awesome partner in terms of getting us the data. I mean, it is literally, we request data in the morning and we have it by lunch or, by close of business the next day. Laura Zettner from BCS, Finance, Elizabeth Comfort, and of course, Emily Klepper, who's been a huge advocate and partner in the work. So the first piece of our key strategies was leveraging the Metro Bond dollars. I think we've done a really nice job with that, where we put out our RFP, did the work in the first quarter of FY21, moved through that work finally into second quarter, into third quarter, where we are essentially have reservations for 3 projects. Feeling pretty good about majority of those projects. Some of them have, some work to do in front of them. And so we're moving along nicely in that space. There's a number of areas in terms of code changes and that kind of thing that are not necessarily the direct responsibilities of H3S. And I could certainly, let Dan dive in on that in just a second. So, where we are also is, moving along nicely with our Milwaukee project, which is a complete, actually, redevelopment of at least, I think, at this point, pretty much 12 city blocks within Milwaukee that's looking at housing in the Hillside Manor, Hillside Terrace. So it's really moving along nicely. One of the things that you don't see reflected here in terms of our Metro Bond dollars is the fact that we have not incorporated into this key strategy the 26-210 yet. And so I think at some point we'll be looking to adapt our key strategies to include the influx of those dollars in terms of permanent supportive housing, because that will actually have a fairly significant impact on our capacity to deliver on these unit numbers. So with that, what I'll do is just stop here and entertain questions before I sort of finish up in this area related to the housing.
Microphone,
Anybody
Jim.
have any questions?
No, I
beat
have
you.
a comment. Rich and Jill and Vahid have done such a great job coming to update the board. I really feel like we've been really well informed, and that this is just a nice little review of what our priority is. And I just really want to thank you, Rich, for really taking what the board set out as a really important strategy and really moving. And Gary, I don't know who did this as far as the format of our materials, but super great, really nice bulleted, easy to read, easy to see where we are, easy to see what we're measuring. It's a good communication tool. And I don't know, I'm just singing praises today. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, you're more than welcome. I mean, for us, in all honesty, related to this particular strategic result and what the board selected, it was utterly in alignment with where the department was headed. And actually also, I think the fact that we had such collaboration across the county, has also made this work a heck of a lot easier. I think as a result, Dan and I have gotten to know each other a whole lot better. Whether he actually likes that much or not, I don't know.
No comment.
Yeah, I figured as much. So we're going to turn it over to you, Mr. Johnson, and you can.
We got one more question.
Okay.
One more, Ken?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that now, especially now that I'm leaving, that the work you've done to maximize the resources for housing every way that you possibly could, I think is commendable. But I want to remind everybody in terms of the long-term goals and economic health of the county, that there's a limit to what you will ever be able to do with taxpayer dollars.
Yeah.
It will deal with the most needy, no question about it, and it should. But in the final analysis, a county commission commitment to economic development that brings in family wage jobs and encourages the businesses that we do have to pay family wages is going to be critical. It gives you the tax base to help those that can't do, that can't work or are very limited in what they can do. And it's the rest of the people, the actual financial wherewithal to buy their own home or be able to at least rent a place within a reason. So I guess if you will, my last charge to you is that really an emphasis on economic development in this county is absolutely crucial to the long-term viability of housing. And I will leave it at that.
Okay.
Well, that is actually a great transition.
Because
if you look at the spectrum of housing that is identified within the board's goals and objectives, there is a portion that is subsidized through public efforts and work, and there is a portion that falls under the market. And the work that we've been doing is basically falling under that market rate, that 60 to 110 range for AMI. And when you look at that annual median income level, recent studies have kind of shown that 80 and above can pay market rent. It's kind of that 60 to 80. It's kind of that hard target spot. But the work that we are doing as a whole, as you can see within this lovely document that Commissioner, just to share with you what we're doing to kind of promote the market. You know, and are aware of the fact that we've released the ability, and by help the market, I'm simply meaning, how do you provide more opportunities for people to build housing? How do you create more supply than the demand we're seeing now? We did some, already adopted some changes that allowed for a number of accessory dwelling units to be established, really widened those parameters. In addition, we've got 2 changes under consideration right now, one of which is increasing densities. Some of the work through Park Avenue, and we're going to expand that in other areas to increase densities in some of our zoning districts. And we also have HB 2001, obviously a mandate from the state that's going to allow a lot of flexibility in providing additional housing options on single-family residential lots throughout Clackamas County. Now, you think about that. We provide the market. You have a goal. Your goal within our area is 700. You think about the changes we are doing in our zoning and ordinance through the next year, and your mind is, well, will the market really make it happen? Here are some interesting numbers. So the percentage of single family dwelling parcels needed to add 700 additional units in unincorporated Clackamas County is only 3%. So if 3% of those houses or lots that are developed now develop an additional residence, you will have met your goal. If the total within the UGB, because if you think about the fact the cities have to do HB 2001 as well, if you include the cities in that number, it reduces it to 1.07%. Those are numbers that are easily achievable by the market. You're not talking about turning over 20 or 30 or 40% of our housing stock. They're very low numbers to meet the objective that you have. So basically what I'm here to say is congratulations, board. You may have actually met your goal here in the next 6 to 12 months with the great work that H3S is doing, with the adoption of these zoning and development ordinance changes, and then obviously partnering with the market to get those houses built. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Rich is at your disposal. I love how I make Rich at your disposal.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That just speaks to our relationship, Dan. Thank you.
Sonia.
Thank you, Dan. So if we're going to meet that goal in a year, will you don't have to answer now, but will you help us decide what our next goal should be? What makes sense, or do we, just
I think that's a great,
keep us surprised.
no, that's a great question. And I think what we're really gonna, I mean, within the year, we'll have the code in place. H3S should have their projects up and cooking, hopefully, and moving. And I think it'd be good to take a moment and just kind of take a breath and really see what especially on our side of the ledger, what the market is providing. What are they building? How many of these duplexes are coming in? How many of these conversions are coming in? How many multifamily dwelling unit expansions that were created through the ordinance changes are happening? And then I think we can really get an idea about a future goal.
Yeah, I think
Well,
that,
it may be just stabilizing and measuring as well. I mean, I like the idea of that breath. So very helpful. Thank you.
All right, I don't see any other questions. Gary?
All right, well, thank you, team. That was much shorter than we anticipated. So you're 30 minutes ahead of schedule, and no one is here for the next session yet. So
All right, so I'll see you in 30 minutes.
we'll
our
take a
goal
30-minute
with this
break.
was the gift of time. It's housing and the gift of time. So
Yes. Thanks.
2:30 p.m. We'll be back then.
all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's get going. Go ahead, Gary.
Yes, commissioners, this is your 2020 Economic Development Commission annual report. We have our staff from Business and Community Services who will lead this, as long as members of the Economic Development Commission for Clackamas County. Sarah, would you please begin, and would you introduce everyone, please?
Absolutely. Thank you for having us today. So my name is Sarah Ekman. I'm Deputy Director with Clackamas County Business and Community Services. Joined today with members of our Economic Development Commission Executive Committee, as well as John LaGarza from Economic Development. And want to express our sincere thanks to this whole group and to the whole commission for all of their work throughout the year. So Mr. John Lamont will be joining us, or is here today, and will be leading through the presentation with other members. We have Vance Tong with Pamplin Media, Alyssa Mahar with Clackamas Community College, and Charles Gallia. Make sure I have everybody. John LaGarza is also here and will be contributing to our presentation. So just again, want to express our sincere thanks. I know Commissioner Humbertson and Commissioner Savis have been our liaisons, and Commissioner Schrader has joined us for many conversations as well. So thank you to all of you as well for participating with us and going down the journey this year. So I will turn it over to, I think, our leaders for the presentation, John Lamont, John LaGarza. I know Vance, I'm not sure if you're joining in this as well, but I will do the PowerPoint.
I'm just here for my charm and good looks. That's it.
All right. So I will go ahead and get this up and turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, we're going to just take 10 or 15 minutes to give you the water ski version. And again, I'm John Lamont. I'm the chair of the commission this year. Next year will be Vance. As you can see from Vance's a picture, he's in a satellite circling the Earth right now, and hopefully will be coming down soon. And then Charles Gallia, who needs no introduction, has been our past chair. So what we did is we kind of contained and maintained with the COVID situation, and a lot of our initiatives that we were trying to get going had to get put on ice. But we did a lot of things to keep business going and keep the flavor of what we need to do for economic development going. And again, thanks to Ken and Paul for their regular input. On the second page, once you get past the roster, you can see the 7 or 8 things that we've been working on. We had an incredible presentation and some follow-ups on childcare needs right before COVID hit. And COVID made it even more critical that we really start to focus on childcare. It's kind of that underlying thing in economic development that nobody pays attention to. It's like a sewer and water and roads thing. And we have a shortage. We have it really bad now because of the COVID hitting some of these childcare providers, and that we really need to look at it stronger and maybe even do some sort of an initiative once we come out of COVID. So that's one we want to talk about. The business resource map, which you're familiar with, you helped launch that whole thing, and that has been a really good tool we'll get to. The Greater Portland, Inc. Community Economic Development Strategy, we've been getting briefings, and also we talked a lot about us being involved, meaning county staff and the commission pretty heavily with them, and then getting our own strategy. Small business emergency grants with MISO, that has been our bread and butter this year, and you'll hear more about that in a minute. We had a great Cushman Wakefield presentation on the industrial commercial sectors and where they're suffering or not suffering because of COVID. We heard from Clackamas Community College about scholarships. And then right before we finished for the year, we got into business recovery centers using Washington County as a model. And we'll start working our way down through the PowerPoint, and we'll go from there. If you go to the next one, Karina. The child care deserts is a new term. I think we might be making that a new term here in Clackamas County. We've got to deal with it. It's got a huge impact on getting people into jobs, cutting down stress, getting kids to schools. And while we've seen these around the country where there's some child care function with a big corporation because they can afford to do it, there's a lot of gaps for the smaller businesses not being able to get to somebody that's ready to go and that's licensed. So we just want to check and see what can we do better for during the COVID, and then what can we maybe initiate once COVID clears out and we are in regular normal times, if it will be normal times. Sarah and John, if you got anything to add as far as the childcare discussions we've had? Nothing more? Okay. And Bridget, Daisy, and the others came in with some really good statistics. So it was really backed up by real numbers and not just saying it's a problem. And we really want to look at how we can broaden it into the economic development discussion. Next slide. The business resource map. This has been a tool that you should be proud of. Our county got it going quick, and people have responded and gotten their businesses in there, and it's being updated. I've talked to John LaGarza about this and Sarah about this, about the possibility of making this a permanent tool once we come out of COVID, because it's a quick get in there, find out who's open and who's got business going. And I think it's also helpful, not just for the unincorporated areas that have commercial and retail, but for our cities, because it's a bigger, broader tool than many of the cities have as well. But it's been a constant battle to highlight to the citizens of our county and cities about who's open and where you can go, or how they can even do a partial order for food or product. But I think this has been a really good product. Okay, next, Greater Portland Inc. They are launching a huge comprehensive economic development strategy. I think they're really focused, and they're focusing on our clusters, which are similar to what Clackamas County has identified. And they want to put a strategy together and get our input through the county board, the Economic Development Commission staff. But we've also discussed with the county's disaster management group doing a similar thing here in the county with our economic development folks, that we would match up and sync up with GPI, but also give information to the disaster management folks. One of the things I found in Lake Oswego, and I think other cities, is that we may have big, thick emergency management plans if a flood or a fire or earthquake come along, but not many of us, I think, were geared up for what happens with our businesses. So we may want to get a chapter written for all our cities and the county on how to automatically and quickly go right into helping our businesses when we have an emergency or disaster like this. And then feeding in directly into the emergency management folks and what they need to kind of put that together. Next slide. The Small Business Emergency Grant Program has been the bread and butter, and to the county's credit, we all hit the ground running here. We've pumped a lot of money back to these small businesses, including some disadvantaged businesses, businesses that might be one or two owners and that's it, people that might have been left by the sidelines by the federal funding. And this has kept staff going, and we've done, I think, a great job. We've been hearing in some of the areas that are unincorporated. We've also been hearing from cities that helped get the money then down to the cities to disperse. And luckily, we teamed up with MISO, the Micro Enterprise Services of Oregon, to help be the administrator. Money from the feds or the county then down to the businesses, but they administer it. And the more you listen to them and the more you see how much they administered, it was pretty amazing. And including when they got somebody that's inquiring, they can also help them with other services, bookkeeping, tax filing, other things that are helpful. And we'll talk more about that in a minute with the business recovery centers. Okay, next slide. This was a really great presentation. I'm pretty sure Ken was there. I think Paul was there. Cushman Wakefield, they just cut to the chase. There was no fear mongering in there. And they basically were saying that the industrial market was hanging in there, but it was less manufacturing and more warehousing, because obviously everybody buying, or many people buying from home and online. It's something that John Lagarde and Sarah and us have been talking about. What does that mean for us for the end of COVID? And then in the future, we got to be careful on our manufacturing. And then in the commercial, meaning mostly office, there was scare tactics going around that 75, 80% of all the retail is going to go away. We didn't think so. They didn't think so. And as far as office, not retail, but office was going to go away. And they felt that it's dipping, dropping, but that the suburbs in Clackamas County had a chance to pick some of that up because people wanting to get out of the city for big cities for a lot of reasons. So it wasn't as nasty a situation as we thought. People will still be out there. They did a survey, which was great. They surveyed millennials who they thought would not want to come back to the office world, or they found the opposite. The millennials wanted to come back for teaming and getting to know their teammates, for camaraderie and team building, and they miss being in the office, where the baby boomers are telling them they don't want to be back in the office because they don't have people bugging them, but then you realize they're not mentoring people. So Cushman Wakefield was pretty high on that. Eventually, a lot of it will come back, not all of it. And then the suburbs and Clackamas could benefit by that. Next slide. The Clackamas Community College scholarships have picked up, and this is a new tool. And it's always nice when the educational institutions are plugged in like they are here, especially Alyssa on our executive committee, and have created some different scholarships for us to train people in different ways. So Alyssa, if you want to add something real quick on this one.
I would just say this is an awesome partnership, and the college is so excited to have it. And we have students ready and eager to be part of this and help them get back into the workforce. So it's just, it's a win-win all around, in my opinion.
Great. Okay, next slide. And then this Business Recovery Center, beyond the grants, we had been approached by your technology folks about helping support the broadband initiative that our county has really become a leader in. And I know we're reaching out more and more to cities, and we as a commission have talked about, can we link this in industrial parks and business parks and office parks? And we put a letter of support to them from the commission, obviously through you, to make sure we're supporting any kind of activity, expansion, or grants that are available. And then Washington County's folks came over and talked about their business recovery centers, which were pretty amazing. They're like the MISO model, where they are an organized outlet, portal for people to plug into, to get grants, to get information. And it's not catch as catch can, and it helps spread the word and the love out from the county staff. And we already, Karina just sent out the email blast. The centers have been announced. There's 6 centers working through our chambers. And we think we're going to give that a shot. And we think that's going to be a great program for at least test it for a year to see if we can channel the technical assistance and the grants. And then the next, so our recommendations to the next slide to you would be to sanction the staff and the commission to align a new community economic, or the comprehensive economic development strategy with the GPI folks. We can do it at our own pace, but to go ahead and put one together and kind of release some funding and backing to get a consultant in here to really get this put together. And I think it's a twofold thing. One, how do we get out of COVID? And then 2, what's the new norm look like so we can really hit the ground running? The next thing is there's been a lot of discussion, unincorporated and incorporated, about getting more feedback from businesses. They may be informal interviews and whatnot to find out what are the lessons they're learning now almost a year into this. So again, we don't have to repeat things and what their specific needs are. I know a business here in Lake Oswego that got caught, fell through the cracks because they didn't pick up PPP, and the owner didn't get unemployment insurance, and they were on an island all by themselves and no money going in. And Lake Oswego gave them a little grant, but they needed more than that. So that's something we can learn more and more about. The recovery strategies for business corridors that are going vacant. I think this is an issue we've talked about for the last 2 years, about commercial corridors that are overgrown with commercial, that are losing retail, that are losing some of their office, and what can we do to reposition them and tighten them up and introduce new uses, maybe like housing and some of the things we talked about at McLaughlin. Increase the diversity on EDC. We're starting to get things a little tighter with the bylaws and the approach, but we're missing some big businesses. We still need to get some bigger, corporate types from throughout the county, and some more women-owned businesses and minorities and some of the disadvantaged businesses overall. So we have kind of a recruiting approach we need to talk about in 2021. And then some sort of a marketing strategy or plan to promote these development opportunities. I think we talked with Chair Bernard about this about a year ago, and how do we get the word out that we're not only open for business, but we have sites in areas that can work right away. And then last, the idea of getting the Land Bank Authority up and running, and to make our climate friendly and use this, the available infrastructure, things that really started getting teed up before COVID hit, and look at what we can do to get these opportunities going, like McLaughlin, like the Sunrise Corridor, like some of our industrial and business parks. That is the overall recommendations to County Board. And the last slide is some ideas for 2021. We want to hear from you, and I'll stop in about 2 minutes. Learning about businesses that are leaving the big city core. Jim Bernard brought this up last time. Let's who, what, and why, and how can we target them? Technology that's disrupting the new norm, either bad or good, but a lot of it's bad now because people are doing online rather than straight out of a box. And more of the minority-owned businesses in the county, how can we get those folks more involved? And maybe have formal presentations from the cities on what they've learned, because each city went through a grant program and assistance program, and that might be maybe a roundtable or a summit. And then the housing affordability for workforce continues to be a need. It's one of the brainstorm things that folks said, let's look at that, and living wage jobs in the county. So that quickly is an overview of what we did, but passing the baton to Vance on January 1st, and we'll open it up for discussion. And if we go back to full screen, that'd be great.
Any questions? Tanya.
You. What a great presentation. I love all of so much information and just a nice little snapshot of 2020. A thought that I just want to throw out there, it's kind of maybe may seem like left field for you guys, but we had a policy session. What was it? Gary, was the Arts Alliance, was it last Tuesday that they came? My weeks are kind of smearing together these days in COVID land. But so the county has had an arts advisory, ABC committee, but also there's a nonprofit, the Clackamas County Arts Alliance. And how it sort of worked is that the county's ABC was sort of the eyes and ears of the nonprofit out in the community and doing a lot of on the ground work. And the policy session was great because it gave us a time to really kind of review what's been happening with arts in Clackamas County and just a nice little overview. But one thing we do know is that arts are a very important economic generator. And there is a tremendous opportunity that's happening all through the arts and culture world of reinvention due to COVID. And we do know that arts are going to come back bigger, stronger, better, I think, like a lot of things will once they revive after COVID. And so I'm just wondering what you guys think. Is there a place within the EDC for there to be a subcommittee? I would really like to see it somehow aligned and to have the thinking of the economic engine that it is for our community. And I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I'll answer first, and if staff wants to jump in. We haven't necessarily discussed it with the commission, but I know that our Clackamas County Arts Alliance did that economic development impact study, I think it was a year ago. And that's a great tool to convince people that, hey, the arts are economic development. And they had some great information there. Maybe that's something we can get out to the commission in early 2021 and see if we can build that in somehow. We're ahead of other counties because we have that. Charles.
Yeah, the marketing Clackamas County, this could be a strong component of what we say. In addition to the complementary information about if you're relocating or locating businesses, I could see integrating that a little more seamlessly with how we sell this as a good place to live, work, and play.
Yeah. When I was on the board of the Chicago Public Art Group years ago, people found out and realized it wasn't just the art, it was what it did to communities and placemaking to bring people there. And then the jobs that were created through the program, it was amazing how many artist jobs, and then all the scaffolding, insurance, and construction put things up. So I think it's a great idea. Let's make a note of that. And then maybe when we get the executive committee together, we can program something on that and shine a light on that. That's a great idea. Let's put that down. Any other questions?
Martha?
Commissioner Schrader, you're on mute.
Excellent, really great report. And thank you for pointing out the child care desert. We've been working with that. As you folks know, I know that Bridget Daisy has been attending the EDC meetings, and we found it to be a huge need, and that women are actually leaving the workforce now because they can't manage both at the same time. And what are some of the solutions you're coming up with for that? I mean, is there anything tangible? I mean, are you working with the college to get more training for people? Are you working with the industry to see if if professional pay can be increased to get quality daycare? Are you finding centers? What are the protocols for COVID now that have you looked into any of those details at all?
Sarah or John?
Yeah, and actually expanding the base for childcare in the county.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely an ongoing topic of conversation, and who we've been partnering with most is Clackamas Workforce Partnership and Bridget Daisy. And so I think we're at the point where we need to look, Commissioner Schrader, at those more actionable items, those kinds of things that you're mentioning and how we can do that. We've been more focused in the COVID support for doing the grants to the child care providers In the session that just closed, we had 125 childcare providers apply, which is quite a few of the total in the county. And so we still need to get to that more tangible piece where we're helping move that needle around those things for increasing the supply, like you say. So I think, and along the lines of what Commissioner Fisher said with a subcommittee, one of the plans we've talked about for next year is identifying some key subcommittees, and I see childcare as one of those as well, so that folks can spend more time and attention on that and help put together some pieces that we can move forward with. And we would do that in partnership with CWP and Bridget's expertise on that.
Martha, I would add, I think a couple ideas that came back were getting the right info, which we have from Bridget and from the county staff, to say how many are out there, how many are we losing? They're closing up shop or they need help, and maybe we target grants even more in the third round. John briefed me on the third round. And then the other thing would be is if we're missing people through COVID and we're not going to get them back, can we target big corporate parks and industrial areas or big companies to say, how can we help you get one going that might not only serve your business in that business park, but the whole business park, and kind of help create them somehow with the partnership. John, you want to, or Charles?
So I, not as part of the EDC, but I happen to be working with Bridget on finalizing the results of a survey that went to people that were in assisted housing and or were seeking employment assistance through the workforce partnership. And one of the sections of the survey focused in on the childcare needs. And that, so think it, that, and that should be coming in, my guess is probably another 3 or 4 weeks. And the approach that was a little unique in both the survey and the partnership that developed with the county was thinking a little more systemically. So a person might be low income and pursuing a job training, and then identifying that as a potential way to link up with childcare needs, and and then exploring what are the impediments to getting that. Is it just cost, or is it, that there's more than one child, or timing, or restrictions? So there's a deeper dive that's coming, and that the county has supported in getting that information back to you.
And they're doing a good job.
Really look at some partnerships, Alyssa and her people, and just spread the load out, but get something going. Maybe there's a new model here we can get to structure these things. I've worked with corporate parks and industrial parks where there is a location on site and everybody in there can bring the kids down, and it's closer to the work. They can go over there at lunch, they can drop off and be at work in 2 minutes. But we have some clusters that might work, some physical clusters that might work.
Have we done any specific outreach yet, though, to the business community to ask about that?
Sarah, John, have we gotten into anything with the actual businesses or the industrial park owners, or no?
John Lagarza, are you aware of anything with that?
I would say the main thing is, is Mentor Graphics has got in Wilsonville has got a daycare on site there. It's a great example of how the zoning can be, created to create the opportunities for childcare in those areas. So continue to reach out to those type of companies to show as an example for other partners within here. But it's an early stage, but yes, we're moving forward in that direction in the future.
Alyssa?
Yeah, I'll just add, I think we're also working really hard at the college to continue this momentum towards degree completion and other things online. I know there are a lot of career technical pieces that need an in-person component, but providing options to folks who can't maybe leave their home to do their training because they do have childcare needs. So we're going to keep pushing, in this virtual environment and being innovative. So that's one thing. The other thing I'll say is we are really good partners with YMCA. They operate out of our campus, and we've heard from them recently they are struggling, and their class sizes have been limited so much that they used to have, I think, 104, and now they only have 50. So it is a real issue for them in terms of how many children they can get into their facility. Yeah. So we're trying to work with them at the college to actually on their rent so that they can, continue to offer services. And then we also do have grants to our students for childcare specifically. So yeah, we want to be real big partners in this push.
And Martha Shorenstein owns the Cruise Corporate Park, as you know, in Lake Oswego. And when they came in before COVID, we talked about mixing the uses up there, getting housing on their parking lots, housing on their last parcel, daycare, something that would be on site. And they're coming in now, they've got a housing project going, but if they had extra space that would have an outdoor space at the ground level, that could be a great daycare opportunity.
Yeah,
So
I'd like to take a look into that. That'd be, yeah. I do have one more question though, Jim, sorry.
Okay.
With Greater Portland Inc., they've just lost their executive director. How is that going to affect CEDS development? Is that going to continue? And what are going to be the tangible results? I know they're in recovery mode right now, but in my observation, we've done these CEDS, but there hasn't been any tangible there. So,
John, did you got any follow up on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Commissioner Schrader, they will be they will be finishing the CEDS. In fact, we are having another update meeting tomorrow, in fact, on what's been there, being moved forward for the CEDS. We have to do it for the EDA for our region. So I think it's also a great opportunity for the county to build their, strategic economic development plan to align with some of those goals for financing and looking for grant opportunities as we come out of this for recovery. So we will eventually get a full plan that's going to be approved for the EDA for this region through GPI. And I'm assuming eventually they will, appoint someone to the new position there for the president.
Yeah, I hear that they're looking right now, but I was unaware that happened. And to me, that's a bit of a red flag, but I'm not going to overwork about it. We'll see what happens with that. So it seems to me that we should be having, I'm going to throw this out, that we should have the whole CEDS conversation. It's a lot of what we lobby for. It should be part of our federal legislative agenda at the Department of Labor, as well as the Department of Commerce. We should be meeting with those folks, those officials, with update with the tangibles in order to get the money. And that's something I think we need to be more forcefully lobbying for if we can. So anyway, sorry, Jim, that's my 2 cents for.
That's okay. There's a couple of dangers. One danger I hear, and I always used to use Seinfeld's. The comment is that you take a reservation for industrial land. He's talking about a rental car, and you don't hold the reservation. And so the risk of using industrial lands and job lands for housing is a challenge. But then it reminds me of Bob's Red Mill and Danner Boots when they were in Milwaukee. They had some things they wanted to do that did not adhere to the zoning. And one was, both of them were retail, a small retail facility on site. So Bob's Red Mill, we had to figure out how to do that. When Danner Boots was there, we had to figure out how to do that. The other, and somebody made a comment about childcare is probably not allowed in some of those zones. So it's a good idea to look at that as another adjustment that might occur in a large, let's say, precision cast parts or something might provide childcare on site, but that's probably not allowed in the zone. So that's an interesting thought. I'd never thought of that before, but things have changed so much.
Well, it's a great point because we got to dig down to make sure these things happen. I mean, even our discussion, McLaughlin, where we talk about introducing new uses, well, the zoning isn't set up for that. And how do we get the zoning set up? In Lake Oswego, when we did the industrial park plan out there, the Southwest employment area, there was a new allowance in the zoning to have some retail with the manufacturing. If, for example, a brewer came in and they're brewing in the back, but they could have a little something in the front. And we got a little caterer with a little restaurant in the front that went in, and it was just perfect. It's not all retail, but it allows two different uses to coexist. Yeah, great point.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of childcare before, but childcare wasn't as big an issue as it is now.
Right.
And certainly the future of our, the future of a manufacturer is kind of an unknown. We have no idea what the future is. I mean,
Right.
this is like our offices up here. Do we need to build another building in the future, not including the courthouse? Yes, we do. But another building to accommodate staff when a lot of that work can be done at home.
Right.
Anyway,
Other questions?
I don't see any other questions.
No. Well, thank you all. It's been a crazy year, and everybody on the commission's excited to help out wherever they can and give you as much advice as we can from the business side and the economic development side. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, everyone.
Commissioners, you will want to accept the report or not accept the report.
Let me see.
I move we accept the report.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we second the report. Any further discussion? Christina, please survey us.
Excellent. Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertston,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
and Chair Bernard.
Aye, motion carries 4-0. Thank you all very much. And Paul has to excuse himself due to a family emergency, a plumbing problem.
Happy holidays, everybody.
You too. Thank you.
You bet.
All right, commissioners, the next policy session is a return to your performance Clackamas goals. This is an update on your priority of honor, utilize, promote, and invest in our natural resources. In particular, the climate action plan goal within your plan. So we have staff from multiple county departments who will present and give you an update on this plan. So I'm not sure who's kicking this off, but Dan Johnson, go ahead.
Great. Thank you. Good afternoon, Commission, Chair Bernard, Mr. Schmidt. We are happy to be here today to share an update from the Climate Action Implementation Team. This team works in support of the board's strategic priorities to honor, utilize, promote, and invest in our natural resources, and this specific goal. By January 2020, a climate action plan is adopted for our community with specific recommendations to reach the goal of being carbon neutral by 2050. It's important to note that this work is a direct result of the 2017 board resolution, which reaffirmed Clackamas County's commitment to combat climate change. Related metrics. When looking, and I'm kind of working my way through that form, obviously, but when looking at metrics for this work, in addition to the board's goal, DTD has also adopted MFR measures that relate to achieve carbon neutrality. We adopted outright the board's goal. We have a goal that by 2021, we develop a countywide diesel engine replacement program. And we have the goal by 2025, 50% of county-owned light passenger vehicles will be hybrid, electric, or plug-in hybrids, excluding vehicles owned by the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. Additionally, the Climate Action Plan supports the board's policy perspective of equity, diversity, and inclusion. What all this means is that by 2050, our community and the county's operation would contribute no additional greenhouse gas pollution. While that's a long-term goal, it's clear that Oregon has already seen some of the effects of the changing climate, with the latest example being the scope and destruction of the fall's wildfires. And so the project will also identify opportunities for our community to adapt and prepare for climate change impacts to become more resilient. We have a great team presenting today, and they will share with you the various aspects of our work. And with that, I'm going to pass this off to Cheryl Bell to share more information about the team and the strategies. Cheryl?
Thanks, Dan, and good afternoon, commissioners. And I'm happy to be here today to share the important work we've been performing in service of the board's goal. So as Dan noted, being carbon neutral by 2050 is a transformative goal that looks 30 years in the future. We are really setting the stage for work that extends through all our time here, at least for most of us, maybe not Sarah, and it is work for future generations. The Climate Action Plan is creating a work plan that starts the journey to achieving the goal of carbon neutrality by 2050, and we will be doing this work in big and small ways through the lifespan of this project. So with a project this broad reaching, it's absolutely a team effort with many involved. And this is true both internally and externally. When we look at the goal in its totality, climate change is something that will directly or indirectly impact almost every aspect of Clackamas County as a community. Many departments within our organization and partners in the community have a role to play in promoting a transition to a carbon neutral community. When we're looking at the efforts directly underway by staff, there are many hands helping to bring the climate action plan into reality. There is an interdepartmental climate exchange where staff from departments across the county meet regularly to support development of the climate action plan and to facilitate greater coordination between departments. Members of the climate exchange also staff a smaller steering committee, and this team directly provides direction and serves as the core project management team for the climate action plan itself, and as the direct line of contact to the project's consulting team. At the departmental coordination level, we have the implementation team, which we are focused on today. The Department of Transportation and Development chairs this team and is chaired by Dan Johnson. He is supported by myself and Eben Polk and Sarah Allison. We also have Public and Government Affairs, represented by Sue Hildick and Ellen Roglin. Disaster Management by Nancy Bush and Molly Bradley. Water Environment Services by Greg Geist and Ron Wyringa. It's a lot of names to read. Business and Community Services by Laura Zittner and Sarah Ekman. Finance is represented by Elizabeth Comfort. Health, Housing, and Human Services by Dr. Sarah Present and Abe Moland. And our board representative is Kimberly DeSantis. So in order to meet the goal of carbon neutrality by 2050, there are a number of key strategies, and the implementation team supports staff and the climate action plan consultant in a number of ways in achieving these strategies. We support them in their work of developing the climate action plan and the associated deliverables of 3 two-year work plans and the climate lens that will be used by the board and other departments. The implementation team supports this work in performing engagement and outreach related to the development of the climate action plan, including the project task force, which will be forming soon, and engagement with traditionally underrepresented communities. The implementation team also supports staff as they enact interim carbon reduction measures to reduce greenhouse gases while developing the climate action plan. And Eben's going to share some of these measures with you today. There's an additional strategy just specific to the implementation team, which is pursuing additional avenues for funding to implement climate action planning. So now that you have an overview of the team and the strategies that we're pursuing, I'm going to pass things off to Eben Polk, our sustainability supervisor, for him to share the activities we've completed to date.
All right. Hope you all can hear me. Thank you, Cheryl, for that great overview. So your worksheet has a number of actions and sort of progress indicators from the past 3 years. And I'm not going to go through all of them in detail. That would take too much time, but I will just touch on a few. As Dan mentioned, really the genesis for this work is with your 2017 resolution reaffirming the county's commitment to combat climate change. That later led to, of course, your decision to adopt a performance Clackamas goal that we need to have a climate action plan. Well, to get ready for what turned out to be that commitment, we in 2018 developed an interdepartmental group that we called the Climate Exchange that had several departments and continues to have several departments with staff coming together at least on a monthly basis to talk a little bit more about how this work is impacting our departments, to provide input from a departmental perspective on, for example, the scope of work, and to just kind of discuss all things climate related, since there are so many things happening within departments that are either impacted by climate change or that have some impact on our services around climate work. Jumping up a few, in the past couple of years, we've completed 2 greenhouse gas inventories. One first for county operations, which was, of course, presented to our executive management team. And then more recently, we completed a community-wide greenhouse gas inventory, which was an important first step in developing a climate action plan. You can't know where you're going if you don't know where you are right now. And that work established a baseline for Clackamas County's existing contribution to climate change. More recently, of course, we developed a scope of work with input from you and then put out an RFP Kind of concurrently with that, we established a website on the county's, a web page on the county's website that is all things climate action, and it's becoming every day almost a better and richer source of information for our community and for you on what we're doing. Let's see, bringing us to the present, in August 2020, we got to the exciting point of announcing intent to award a contract to Sustainability Solutions Group to manage the process of developing a climate action plan. We've been really impressed with their work so far. We had a great kind of kickoff orientation meeting just last week that I believe our two board liaisons were invited and were able to attend. And for those of you who didn't have a chance to see that, you can go to our website and watch the orientation video present where SSG and one of their subcontractors presented how this climate action planning process is expected to unfold. That was our most recent exciting thing. Just want to highlight one other thing, which is that public health has been a really important partner in all of this. And they've taken the initiative to do a lot of great work, even as the climate action plan moves forward. So recently, they got some additional funding to continue their work around looking at the nexus of climate and public health. They're going to be able to use some of those funds from NACHO to support like updated health indicators. That's just one example of where I think the climate and the public health conversation is really mature here in the county. And I think that connection will hopefully serve us well going forward. So with that, those highlights, Sarah Allison is going to talk a little bit more about what is upcoming.
Thanks, Eben. So yeah, in talking about activities that we have planned specifically over the course of this fiscal year that we are in, I'd like to highlight some of the elements that are in the detailed timeline that's included in your packet. So the Climate Action Plan timeline includes both technical analysis, which is already underway, and also it builds on the existing greenhouse gas inventories that Eben mentioned. And we also have community engagement that includes both in-depth and broad-based opportunities for community members. Over the course of the winter, the consultants are going to pull together initial technical reports and establish the community task force and any subcommittees that we develop for that. In the spring, we'll have more community engagement and we'll start to model the impacts of those different actions and what impact they might have. And then over the summer, we'll start to narrow down to a specific strategy to meet the county's climate goal. And that'll come together in the fall with the final documents of the Climate Action Plan, Climate Lens, and the implementation plan. So that's sort of the arc of the Climate Action Plan development over the course of the next year. We've already started reaching out to some stakeholders, and as Evan mentioned, we began introducing county leadership to the consultants last week with our virtual meet and greet, and that is up on the county's YouTube channel as a recording. And then in addition to the Climate Action Plan itself, as Evan also mentioned, there are a lot of other pieces of work that are underway across multiple departments. So we have a lot of different departments really taking their own piece of this work. Evan already mentioned the public health work. Additionally, Fleet has been doing some great work about electrifying the county fleet. So we had a project with PGE where they did an analysis for us and helped us get a baseline for the opportunities to electrify and reduce our carbon footprint with county-owned vehicles. And Fleet is currently using that analysis to prioritize different options. You'll also hear more from Greg Geist in a moment about some of the success we've had reducing our carbon footprint related to electricity. So those are some of the highlights of activities planned in the fiscal year. But of course, with a project this large, there are barriers and challenges, and I will pass it off to Dr. Sarah Present to discuss some of those.
Thank you, Sarah. So clearly much has changed in our county and in the world since we initially started work on this MFR goal. Clackamas County has been hit with two major disasters in 2020, both the COVID-19 pandemic and the devastating wildfires that have affected so many of our residents and our county staff directly and indirectly. The kickoff to the climate action planning process was necessarily delayed as we adjusted to remote work and as staff and resources were necessarily redirected to disaster response. We have some ongoing concerns about community bandwidth, about individuals and partner agencies like community-based organizations and their ability to engage while everyone is strained in many ways. Staff as well have lost loved ones and property. They have redirected their time and their energy, and they have limitations on engaging in new and exciting work when the future still feels so uncertain. We are also facing adjustments in budgets as funds have needed to be allocated to emergency response in various departments, making future funding a bit uncertain. And we are anticipating greater need for all of us in various departments to work on creative funding strategies to implement these climate strategies. And although this can bring in unexpected opportunities, it certainly is a challenge that we are facing. And I will now pass it on to Greg Geist to discuss some of the many things that are going well.
Thank you, Dr. President. Good afternoon, everyone. I get the easy part, talking about all the cool stuff that we're doing. And Cheryl mentioned the cross interdepartmental collaboration that's happening. I've never seen that happen to this degree, which is a wonderful thing. Also bringing on the contractor Eben mentioned, so that's a very tangible progress being made. Some early actions that we're taking to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, mostly focused around electricity. The Strategic Energy Management Program, which is a partnership with Energy Trust of Oregon. West went through that process. The county is going through that process. We've got more work to do at a couple of our other facilities, but we've already saved millions of kilowatt hours of electricity just through those kind of best practices, good housekeeping, changing habits and things like that. It's been a very, very successful and frankly profitable endeavor for us. The BCC thankfully gave us approval to do the Green Futures Energy Program. That's going to kick off, that's a partnership with PGE and others. That's going to kick off because due to COVID-19, it was delayed until probably mid-2021. But that's going to, participating in that program, which is only about $70,000 to $80,000 on top for Wes, on top of a well over $1 million per year power bill, is going to significantly reduce our greenhouse gas or our carbon footprint. There's going to be some community solar projects that will be coming in front of the board December 10th, I think, Thursday. If it made the agenda, I'm not sure. If not Thursday, then very soon. Also, I wanted to mention the Leaders in Sustainability program. Both, that's a county, comes out of sustainability, and both WES and DTD over the past year or so have become certified, which is a very positive thing as well. And then lastly, this is specific to WES, but with the solids handling project that we're completing as we speak and doing the startup, we are going to more than double our power production using biogas at that facility. So we're going to take from generating a fraction of the electricity that we use at our industrial facility to almost half. So we will be making significant progress in being more self-sufficient from an energy standpoint. And then I think the other key takeaway is through all of this work, we've developed really strong relationships with both Energy Trust of Oregon and PGE. And those are going to pay dividends down the road as they know who we are, they know what we're trying to do, they know that we're good partners, and they want to work with us. So that's all great stuff. The last thing I wanted to mention was, there was state action back in March of 2020, for those of you who don't recall. The governor did an executive order 20-04, which complements quite nicely the county's action and reinforces the importance of this stuff. And it basically applies to all state agencies of any size and sets a goal of an 80% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions from 1990 levels by 2050. And I was thinking about that, and I think for WES, between the strategic energy management that we've done, the more efficient pumps and equipment and fleet that we've implemented the last few years, our increase in biogas electricity generation, and the Green Energy Futures program, we're going to be very close to meeting that goal within the next year. So that's good news. And that's all I've got.
So this just hit me during the presentation. Dr. President, we probably owe you an apology. Of all the people who had to share information about barriers, maybe we could have given you some good information to share. And for that, we apologize. That's my bad. Real quick, so in conclusion, as you can tell, we have much more to share when we have more time than we have time for today. And there's significant work underway on this board's goal. This brings us to the end of our presentation, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And a quick shout out to all of our partners. You guys all did great.
Well, I have a couple of comments. One is a great presentation. The team is outstanding. I hope that in the future, the rest of the commission will remain focused on this issue. I assure you, the community wants you to. And it makes economic sense, frankly, to invest in green energy and build products that will produce or lower the cost of energy. And I know one time we had a difficulty with the word sustainability, but it's a good word and one that should remain in our dictionaries for years to come. So commissioners, make sure, I wish Paul were here, that you keep this on the front burner. I remember in Oregon City at that presentation, Evan gave, and the community was just 100% behind the work we're doing and anxious for that final report. So thank you all very much. And Sonia.
So Ken and I have had really such an honor and a privilege being our board liaisons to this effort, and we got to be there for the meeting the consultants and seeing all the really cool slides that got me so excited. And I had to like text Dan, and it was like saying, oh, this is just so cool. But please, you guys, it's so informative and it's so interesting. So that's up. It's on our website. To my fellow commissioners, please, look at it. I guarantee you will be absolutely engaged with what the process will be. And the thing that just blew me away by that is just the information that we can gather to really look at our community and the commitment towards bringing in all the diverse perspectives to come up with something that's uniquely ours in Clackamas County. And it's okay to have differences of opinions and that actually makes it better. That's what I left with from that meeting. And I was really pretty excited. So I just had to say that. Thanks.
Ken and then Martha.
I just want to say thank you to Eben for his leadership. He's been a constant champion of sustainability and environmental work. And I think the county is very lucky to have him in the role that he is currently in. You have a very good team with you. I regret that I will not be there to continue to support your work, but I will put in one last plug for the Forest Advisory Board's carbon sequestration project. Please do not forget about that. I think it's a great opportunity to help further your goals and make a buck for our Parks Department. And I will say thank you again for your leadership and your hard work. And Greg Geist, for all the work that you've done environmentally there at West. Thank you again for your work.
Thank you, Martha.
Microphone.
Always near and dear to my heart as a bee person. But I wanted to give a shout out to Wes. They've also been working on, I don't know where this fits in with this particular initiative, but you have dedicated staff time to work on a symposium dealing with the Clackamas River Basin. And that includes sustainability of use of the water source, for what we need it for recreation, for drinking water, for every piece of that. And I'm hopeful that this team, as that conference is now starting to shape up and come together, that you'll be able to attend. Because I think it will be very enlightening, and it is one of our key, it is the key watershed that we have here in the county. And I think it's going to be excellent from a technical level. And I think it's going to be also excellent for the layperson that just wants to learn about water use, fish biology, insect ecology, everything of that sort is going to be included. And we're going to have a piece where we'll be talking about water policies for the basin, what has worked and what has not. So I'm hopefully you folks will, and Greg in particular, I know your group's been involved in it. It'd be nice to make sure that the rest of our sustainability group is aware of this. I think it's going to be a really good conference. So, right. Thanks.
I don't see any other questions. Thank you very much. Yes, Dan.
Oh, hey, just real quick. I'm sorry, Chair Bernard. I want to do another shout out to our staff, even Dr. Present, who is so busy. She really wanted to be a part of this discussion. We appreciate that. I'll tell you the two things that I got from the discussion with our consultant, one of which is you need different opinions in this discussion to really make it a transparent, acceptable development of a plan. Differing opinions, different ideas about what it means. That's important, and our consultant realizes that. I think secondly, there are ways to get consensus on a variety of things. There are a variety of ways to move the meter on this topic, and I think that we will be successful in getting consensus around some of those. Some of those may be more challenging than others, but there are ways to move the meter on this dialogue, which is really exciting. So with that, that's all I got.
All right, thank you very much. I'll turn it over to Gary. See you next time.
Thank you, team. So commissioners, you have now received over the past 4 months an update on all 5 of your strategic priorities, and within that, your 12 strategic results. So thank you to the staff for their excellent work on a new initiative we did this year called implementation teams. What happens next is in January, the new board will review the 5 strategic results and 12 strategic priorities to make sure that still is the track the new board wants to go. And if so, we'll keep moving forward. And if not, we'll make adjustments to that plan. So that will be the next step. But thank you, commissioners, for being engaged with this process the last 4 months. With that, we'll move on to the next policy session. We have a series of 3 separate policy sessions, but all from our sustainability office from the Department of Transportation. So we'll start first with franchise area transfer. We have Rick and Eben from the Sustainability Division. So please go ahead.
All right. So continuing on to new topics. Yes, we have a series of policy sessions, the first of which is to share with you and ask for your approval of a transfer of a franchise that has a long-standing history in Clackamas County. And so to talk a little bit more about that, Rick.
Space bar, hit my space bar, but it didn't want to work. Can you hear me? Just quit.
There you go.
Yes.
Am I back?
Yes.
Yep. I got the big quit unexpectedly. Sorry about that. Chair Bernard and commissioners, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to see you all again. And as the report said, we are talking about one of the original franchises that's been held with the same family. And the area is one of our most challenging areas that they serve. As you can see, they start, the original application says from Shorty's Corner to the border of the county. And so that is the area they serve up there around, leaving east of Sandy all the way up to Government Camp. And as many of you have been up there recreating over time, some of the challenges of the roads and of the area that's there. And these folks have been, working up there since the 50s. And then in the 70s, when the original franchise went through, the owner to be, hopefully, Rhonda Bliss, her grandfather, started that, and then her parents in the mid 80s took it over from the grandfather, and the board at the time transferred the franchise to Jim and Shirley Bliss. And now Rhonda Bliss is looking to take over from them. Their area, like I said, is one of the most challenging. And just real quickly, if I can share, because they do go up to timberline, and so they have snow days more than just one time during the winter. They chain up often, and when the snow hits down here and everybody panics, they are still up there working and doing the job. And I've appreciated Jim and Shirley over the years for they're willing to share their their expertise in the business with me, especially as I started my career, and their help in doing the annual reviews has been very, very appreciative. And they were unable to make it today. They had some family business with an elderly aunt, and so they couldn't make it, and they send their regrets. They really wanted to be here today. So they're currently in the process of upgrading a billing system. And as I said, Rhonda is officially started in 1994. She's managed all aspects of the company. And, when we were doing the Solid Waste Commission report, she was out fixing a radiator on one of the trucks. So she's chief cook and bottle washer, as you say. So she'll run the recycling truck if she needs to, if somebody's sick. So and her daughter then is helping in the office as well. So we're looking asking for a recommendation to approve the transfer and consider it that at your next as a consent agenda item. So if there are any questions, let me know.
You want a motion or?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve option 1, approve the transfer of franchise area 70-16-C held by Bliss Sanitary Services Incorporated through a change in control of the corporation effective January 1st, 2021.
Second. First, I think it's great that generation after generation is keeping this business afloat, and it's not Waste Management who's taking it over. So, not that there's anything wrong with Waste Management, but a small family business is really important. So, without any further discussion, I'll ask Christina to please poll us.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertston?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
That's an aye from Schrader.
I see it. And Chair Bernard?
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you, commissioners.
So the next session, same team, is consider Solid Waste Commission recommendations on Clackamas County garbage and recycling transfer station fees. Rick and Evan, go ahead, please.
Okay, so keep your mind in the same general space in the county. You hopefully recall that we own and operate, Waste Management operates for us as a franchisee, a transfer station just uphill of Sandy off of Highway 26. And some improvements have been made there that we'd like your permission to adjust the rates in order to recover the costs associated with those improvements. And so Rick will tell you a little bit more about what we've accomplished there.
Thank you, Evan. Chair Bernard, commissioners. We, recently we had the DEQ made some changes made a change to the classification at the transfer station and put it in a classification of a landfill for the purposes of their MPDES permit, which is essentially the stormwater management permit on site. So made a little more rigid standards. They always had met the standards and the parameters that they had for their MPDS permit on site with their current operations, that sort of thing. Did a lot of litter control, et cetera, and did a pretty good job. We put in a stormwater management plan, I want to say, or a stormwater management plan and a pond back, I think, in '98. And I think you have the pictures in front of you, so I won't take that time. But with those changes, we realized that we needed a much larger retention pond. And so they built one to a standard for a 25-year storm, I think is what it was built for. So significantly larger, as you can see in the picture. And so we hope to be able to, keep the water retained in that pond so that it infiltrates and it's not doing a lot of outflow and doesn't go to the to the stream, to the waters of the state. And I was surprised, since we're 500 yards up from the creek, the closest creek, but we went out in a storm event, and sure enough, you could see the water kind of making its way down. So this was a much needed improvement. And as the report said, Waste Management managed these improvements. We had done, I think we had talked before with you about we had improved the rail and the tipping deck and that sort of thing, and invested monies from our franchise fees that we've accumulated over the years to do those site improvements. And then right afterwards, this came along, and Waste Management project managed that project all the way through, from design to build, and they came in about $30,000 under budget, and I think did a real good job. And we haven't been up there, we haven't come to you for a rate increase up there since 2016, as I said in the report. And this $3 increase, which is a little less than 4%, it covers the cost of the improvements that they've had to make for the stormwater, and it should cover that throughout the remaining life of their franchise that's there. That's what it's designed to do. Now, we may be coming back in a year or so to discuss other adjustments there, but this is one that's immediately needed, and none of the operational issues have been considered necessarily in this increase. So I will leave it at that, and any questions you may have.
I do not see any questions. You probably need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the increase to select fees at the Clackamas County Garbage and Recycling Transfer Station to become effective January 1st, 2021, recommended by the Solid Waste Commission, which is option 1.
Second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Christina?
Thank you.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertston?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Perfect. Chair Bernard?
Aye. Motion carries unanimously 4-0. Thank you. Gary?
This and the prior item both goes on a consent agenda, correct, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Great. All right, final item, same team, is to consider sending a letter to the Metro Regional Government regarding Metro's proposed interim disposal fee increase. Go ahead, please.
All right, thank you, Gary. So this is our last item, commissioners. Actually, I would be remiss if I didn't point out, I know Dan wanted this to get mentioned, that that Stormwater Basin project came in $60,000 under budget. It was originally budgeted at $190, came in around $130. So we just appreciate the work that went into keeping that project cost effective. Okay, so Metro fee increases. As you I think know, Metro operates 2 transfer stations in the region, and they set disposal fees at those stations. We pass those fees on. They are part and parcel of the fees charged to Clackamas County unincorporated customers of garbage and recycling service. Disposal is a fairly large part of the overall cost of monthly service for garbage and recycling here in Clackamas County, which is around $33 for a 32-gallon can right now. So typically Metro does a fee increase they make a decision in the spring as to what a fee increase will look like effective July 1st. And with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, they decided to defer the kind of fee increase that they were looking to make this calendar year, with the exception of a small increase in their excise tax, which is a formula thing. So not something that staff really controls. So they decided to defer a significant increase to a later point. And in the last couple of months, there's been a lot of conversation about the timing of that. There's been a lot of input from staff in several local governments and also elected officials at some cities, asking Metro to do this increase effective July 1 in keeping with the normal schedule. Initially, they had proposed to make an increase effective in January and then potentially do 2 increases. That would cause a lot of heartburn for us, put us into a difficult situation. So we have learned through emails sent to Administrator Schmidt in the last couple of weeks that they've made a decision to recommend to their council that the Metro Council adopt an increase this month, but that it be effective July 1st of next year, which is more or less the feedback that we were providing at the staff level, and again at some electeds also shared elsewhere around the region. Well, first of all, we think it might be appropriate just to acknowledge that Metro has made that timing decision, or at least it appears that they're set to make that timing decision. And so we suggested, we're suggesting a letter to Metro to acknowledge and appreciate that change, which helps us out a lot, and will put some additional pressure on their reserve fund in deferring their increase. So that's one thing that we would like to express to them. But the other thing that we're suggesting the board express is a desire for more information about the scope, scale, and the use of the proposed increase, which I should just indicate is significantly larger increase in disposal fees than what we've seen over the past handful of years. And if I have the ability to share a screen, Christina, do I have screen share capability?
You should be able to share your screen.
Okay, I'll just share with you a little bit of analysis since we just got some numbers recently around the proposed increase. I think we probably should. Okay, are you able to see a Word document? Okay. So again, these are under consideration by Metro right now, proposed to be effective July 1st if the Metro Council accepts staff's recommendation. The current disposal rate for mixed solid waste at transfer stations run by Metro is $64, and they are proposing a 13% increase, adding $8.40 per ton. There is another key component of the overall tip fee or disposal fee is the regional system fee. And the regional system fee is used exclusively for solid waste and waste reduction related initiatives in the region. So it's not spent on other Metro activities. And right now that fee is $18.58, and they're proposing a 36% increase in that fee, an increase of $7 per ton. That will take the total disposal fee from where it currently stands at $98 per ton up to $113 per ton. Now, Rick has done some kind of back of the envelope analysis around what that would turn into in terms of costs for local garbage and recycling customers. And that's what this portion of the analysis shows. And this just uses the 35-gallon cart as an example. I mentioned earlier that it's about $33 for a month for weekly garbage and recycling service using a 35-gallon cart in the urban area. And of course, we have slightly different fees for rural and distant rural areas. The cost increase in the disposal fees would translate to about a $1.08 increase on a monthly basis at the local level on the residential side. So I should just again reiterate that these two fees are not used to fund other work at Metro. The mixed solid waste fee, those revenues are used to operate the transfer stations. And the regional system fee is used to support regional solid waste activities that Metro leads. So there's a lot in these, there's a lot of questions that are raised by the scope and scale of this increase, questions that aren't really answered yet. And we think that staff believes that the board may have an interest in learning a little bit more about the proposed increase and what kinds of services will be provided to our community as a result of the increase. Rick.
Yeah, Evan, I just wanted to point out just a little follow-up. I heard a gasp there at the $8 on the transfer station operations, and there are several things that went into that, providing living wages for the spotters and kind of changing some contractual arrangements at the Metro South transfer station, and also overall improvements in the transportation contract that they have for hauling waste out to Arlington, kind of improving load size and that sort of thing to minimize greenhouse gases, et cetera. So there were a lot of things about a $4 million package that was improvements that I think, you know, align with the board's goals and certainly with ours as well. So thank you.
Ken.
Yeah, I think I'd support sending the letter to get more information. Anytime there's more than that there's a double-digit increase in fees or rates in utilities, having served on a number of different utility boards of one kind or another, that's always a big red flag to me. That doesn't mean it isn't needed. It may well be needed and justified, but I think we ought to look into it a little bit deeper and make sure that we know exactly why, because we will ultimately get the questions, or my colleagues who will be remaining on the board will get the questions from citizens as to why these big increases.
Right.
And they should be well and forearmed with information to defend any decision when it's a double-digit increase in particular.
Well, living wage job, that was something I thought you would catch right away there.
I caught that, and I think that's good, but I think there are other factors, and really a real list of very specific things and how they attack that cost, so that my colleagues will be able to say to their constituents, look, there's a living wage increase that costs this, and it's a transportation issue that costs this, and it's an environmental issue that costs this, and that's why this is what's going on. Some real simple but direct specificity, I think, will make it much easier to at least quiet what will obviously be a reaction from the public.
So do you need a motion on the letter?
I move to support sending the letter.
Second. Further discussion? Christina Paulus, please.
Just ask a clarifying question. So
Yes.
Ken, you're moving option, the recommendation from staff, correct?
Yes, option one.
Okay, I just want to make sure. All right, thank you all.
Sorry about that.
Christina.
And we'll start with Commissioner Fisher.
Aye.
Commissioner Humberston,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
and Chair Bernard.
Aye, motion carries 4-0. Thank you. And thank you, Evan. And now I got to get this down here. Rick. Thank you.
Thank you.
There and Crater Lake.
Yep.
You haven't written the letter yet, have you?
That is, no, we have not.
Okay.
So we can review it.
We'll put it on issues next Tuesday for you to review. Please have the draft done by this Thursday at noon. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
If I can offer a suggestion on the letter, don't bury people in bureaucratic stuff. Give them a really simple, direct, bullet point approach to what the costs are and how they impact the rate. Keep it KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Okay.
That's why we appreciate you, Commissioner. Commissioner Bernard, thank you very much. And
Thank
Mr.
you.
Humberston, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a
Thank you all.
pleasure.
All right.
Gary.
Thank you, team. So that is the end of your policy sessions, commissioners. Those last three went very quickly. So you are done for the day.
All right. Well, thank you. And tomorrow we have a land use hearing. So we'll see you then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.